What follows may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
The world is full of stories. Stories of mysteries, of curiosities, of oddities. Join Kat and Jethro Gilligan-Toth for the strange, the bizarre, the unexpected, as they lift the lid and cautiously peer inside the Box of Oddities.
Okay, I've been saving this story until our podcast. I didn't want to tell you this until we were actually doing the podcast. But something weird happened to me at the grocery store.
Yay!
The other day.
Okay.
Here it is. I was at the grocery store, and you know how you run into the same people up and down the aisles? You know, you see them in one aisle, and then a couple aisles later, you see them again.
Fancy meeting you here.
Yeah. Hey, want to dance? You know, that kind of thing. Well, there was a lady with a little girl, and she looked to be about maybe 3-ish, and she kept saying, "I want Fruity Pebbles. I want Fruity Pebbles." The mother kept saying, "You're not getting Fruity Pebbles. I've told you we're not getting Fruity Pebbles. We're not going to get sugary cereal." A couple aisles later, pass him again. She's going, "Mom, I want Fruity Pebbles. I want Fruity Pebbles." And the mother's still like, "No, Sarah, we're not getting Fruity Pebbles." So this happens. I can hear it, you know, in another aisle throughout the store several times during my shopping experience. And then sure enough, I get to the checkout and they're right in front of me. And she has this huge cart just full of stuff. The little girl hasn't given up. In fact, she seems more frantic because this is her...
She knows it's the last chance to get the Fruity Pebbles.
Yeah, her last ditch effort. So she's like, "Mom, I want Fruity Pebbles. I want Fruity..." "I told you, Sarah, we're not getting Fruity Pebbles." And the little girl stomps her foot and she puts her hands on her hips and she said, "I want Fruity Pebbles. And if I don't get Fruity Pebbles, I'm telling Granddad you had Dad's pee-pee in your mouth."
What?
And so the woman turned ashen color and just closed her purse, left all the groceries there.
Oh my God.
And just walked out.
I mean, she took her child though, right?
She did take the child,
Okay,
yes.
I mean, I bet she considered not. That is horrifying.
Leave the child there. And so I'm wondering if she ever did get the Fruity Pebbles.
That is not what I'm wondering at all. I have concerns and questions, and I don't even know if I like that story.
I should have followed her out into the parking lot and done an in-depth interview.
Yeah.
You know.
Pardon me. I have some questions.
I have a few questions.
Oh, man.
Yeah, apparently the little girl walked in on them.
No, that's upsetting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's upsetting.
Yeah.
No.
So that was a fun shopping experience.
I'm glad that you've started this episode by making me incredibly uncomfortable. No. Okay. All right.
Theboxofoddities.com is our website. Our email address is curator@theboxofoddities.com. We would love to hear from you. We're starting to get emails from all over the place, which is exciting to us.
Yeah. I'm so upset.
You're still
so
upset about that story. You should have seen the color drain out of her face.
I would imagine.
It was hilarious.
Yeah, no, that's awful. Theboxofoddities.com.
I knocked you off your game, didn't I?
You sure did. Yeah, what was the thing you said yesterday? I think we had a new listener from...
Malaysia?
Yeah. That's cool.
We got a couple of downloads from Malaysia.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
And very exciting.
And Indonesia as well. I'm waiting for Papua New Guinea because those are your cannibal ancestors.
I don't know why you feel the need to keep bringing that up.
Because it's great. I love the fact that I'm married to the ancestor of a cannibal.
I mean, you're probably the ancestor of a cannibal at some point. You just don't know it.
That could be.
You don't have the DNA to back it up. Maybe it's even closer than you think. Maybe, that missing cousin of yours
was eaten by another cousin?
Yeah.
It happens. It happens.
Maine woods get cold. We live in Maine, by the way, right near to Bangor.
And oftentimes we have to kill and eat our relatives to survive. It happens.
The winters here are long and cold.
They're brutal. Okay, so you got a story for me. What do you got?
Yes. Okay. This is, well, I'm not going to preamble. We're just going to get into it.
It's going to launch in.
Queen Victoria. She was a huge figure of the 19th century and a big personality. She had voracious fervor for foods and life and had wanted to learn new things. And she had very specific demands about parts of her life and parts of her death. She died at the age of 81, and she left a secret detailed instruction list on how to handle her body, what items were to be placed in her coffin. It was 12 pages long.
Well, she was the Queen of England.
She was specific. At the time of her death, Queen Victoria was Britain's longest reigning monarch. She'd lived a life full of responsibilities, loves, and intrigues. And some of those things did not meet with her family's approval. You know, you've heard about how there were some instances where her family was like, you cannot do this as the Queen of England. And she's like, I will do what I want. I am the Queen of England. Boom. When it came time for her to make her final arrangements, she knew her wishes would require an element of secrecy in order that they be observed. Chief among those carefully kept secrets were some things that we're going to discuss today. Her keeper of secrets was Sir James Reed. He was her primary physician for the last 15 years of her life, and she had given him this list, and he was the only one that was to see it. Other people would be involved in the carrying out of the instructions, but he was the only one to see this list. And the list still exists, by the way. It is held in the possession of Sir James' descendants as part of his personal papers collection, and the royal family is actually still mad about it.
Really?
The late Princess Margaret is said to have publicly confronted members of his family, accusing them of, quote, having something that belongs to us, give it back.
Oh, no.
But that came to no avail, and the list remains still in the Reed archive. So Queen Victoria died on the 22nd of January, 1901, and the funeral, the state funeral, was at St. George's Chapel on the 2nd of February. After the funeral, her coffin lay in state at the Albert Memorial Chapel for 2 days and then was taken to the mausoleum by the Royal Horse Artillery. And then in a letter to the Times, those in charge of her funeral procession shared that the Royal Horse Artillery had been unable to draw the gun carriage because it was so heavy, her coffin so filled with baubles. That the Royal Navy had taken over with the tasks within moments. One of the first strange items on Victoria's list of burial instructions was a plaster cast of Prince Albert's hand, made shortly after his death. So Albert had died unexpectedly at the age of 42, and she was devastated. She mourned him for like 40 years. She worshipped her dear departed husband, and so she had busts made and casts of his body, various parts of his body.
Really?
How many, we don't know. And the cast of his hand was to be buried with her holding on to her hand.
Aw.
Yeah.
That's kind of sweet.
She also insisted that she be buried wearing her white bridal veil, which was worn at her wedding to Prince Albert in February of 1840. This is a fun side note. It was actually Victoria who started the tradition of wearing white wedding gowns. It came from wanting to stress her interest in economy and partly as a symbol of her purity. Both she and Albert were reportedly virgins on their wedding night. And though today Victoria kind of has a reputation for prudishness, that was not the case. Once the wedding night came and went, she was busy, and she prioritized her physical relationship with Albert. And also Albert was apparently even somewhat overwhelmed by her enthusiasm and was known to lock her out of the bedroom for a break.
Really?
Yeah. And
I had no idea. What a saucy
minx.
Minx.
Oh, yeah.
Royal minx.
And because Victoria was used to getting what she wanted, she would not have that. She would literally bang on the door shouting, "Let me in, I am the queen," until he would open it. And then when she was in the 9th pregnancy, when her doctor said, this should be your last pregnancy. You should be done with birthing. This is tough on your body, babe. She reportedly said, "What? Am I to have no more fun in bed?" And she was also very sentimental. Amid the variety of flowers and other things buried with her, she wanted fresh hyacinths in her casket that came from a specific place where they used to go to vacation. That, though, might have been in part to florally cover some of the other things that were stashed in her coffin.
Was she buried with like a 19th century dildo?
No.
Well, why would she?
Because we launched from her being a sex fiend into the things
hiding
hidden.
things under hyacinths.
Right. She had rings on all of her fingers when she was buried, but on her left hand, on her wedding finger or on her ring finger, she wore her wedding ring, from Albert. But on her right hand, on her ring finger, she wore a ring given to her by Halafa. Yes. After Albert passed, she took a lover, John Brown, and their relationship was highly disapproved of by the royal family, and the nature exactly of their relationship isn't known.
But as you mentioned earlier, the Victorian period, which was named after Queen Victoria, is known for being prudish and sexually repressive. So she was having all the fun she wanted, but no one else could.
Well, I mean, maybe they did. It just, they kept it quiet. And because she was the queen, everything was reported and scandalized and probably made bigger and sexier than it really was. I don't know. I do know that she was buried clutching John Brown's photo and a lock of his hair.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And that is where strategically placed were the hyacinths.
Oh, I see.
By the way.
Okay.
Her coffin, custom designed and enormous, was nearly filled to the brim before her body was placed inside. A layer of charcoal was placed inside at the very bottom. That was standard procedure during these days before modern embalming, and was designed to keep down the odors and wetness that comes from, bits.
Yeah. Coffins in those days were basically big kitty litter boxes before the embalming. Pre-Civil War.
Right. Because as the body decomposes, things start to melt a little. Among the contents of the coffin were also sentimental mementos, shawls, books, bracelets, lockets, rings, as I mentioned, on every finger, bracelets on both wrists, pendants. Also, a heavily ornately embroidered man's cloak, which belonged to Prince Albert, that was sewn and embroidered by the couple's daughter, Princess Alice. And Alice was the first of their children to pass. So it was thought that was a memento for both Albert and Alice that she wanted to be buried with. It was kind of sweet because it was always worn by Prince Albert with pride, and it was kind of nice. She also had rules about who and how her body would be buried, like specifically, like how it would be laid to rest. Once her doctor and secretary placed most of the numerous sentimental items in the coffin, certain family members and servants were gathered to move her body. And it was instructed that lifting her head would be the doctor and female secretary / lady in waiting. Lifting along one side of her body were her son and heir, the new King Edward VII, and her grandson, German Kaiser Wilhelm II, and another of her sons, Arthur, Duke of
Earl, Duke,
Connaught, I don't know. Lifting on the other side of her body were her three most devout servants. So she had specific people who were to be holding certain parts of her body.
She thought of every detail.
She really did. That's why that list was 12 pages long. And some of the items were rearranged after she was placed, buried. She had to be, what's the word that I'm looking for? Things were judged. So she was placed in the coffin, and before it was closed for the final time, her hair was zhuzhed and her veil was zhuzhed, and she was made to look just so.
She was fluffed.
Oh, fluffing's not a word that we want to use, right? Because, isn't that what they do? Isn't that when, in the porns? When you're in a,
well, you're pretending
fluffing?
like you don't know. You're the one that told me about fluffing.
I'm just saying that probably we shouldn't call it fluffing. That's what they do before a porn.
I just call it windmilling.
Is that how you get ready? That's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's
Well, maybe for some people.
Oh, we got off track there.
Any hoozle.
Anyway, lots of stuff in that coffin.
Yeah. So getting back to her voracious sexual appetite, because it's funny that last week you talked about how Dolly Madison was a whore. And,
I never said that.
Well,
I don't like the word whore anyway. It implies that there's something negative about having a sexual fervor, and I don't believe that that's
I'm
true.
celebrating whoreness.
I say sleep around.
Okay, fine, whatever. This week you're talking about Queen Victoria and her voracious sexual appetite and how she just wouldn't leave Prince Albert alone.
She was a fan of carnal pleasure.
I wonder if she ever had Prince Albert in the can.
I genuinely don't know what that means.
I wonder if Prince Albert had her in the can.
Like if they were members of the Mile High Club? What's the can? Oh! Okay, I see what you're getting
You
at.
okay?
I
Okay.
see which angle you're coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. So Prince Albert led a haggard royal life.
Yeah, he was exhausted. He died at 42. That's probably why he was tired.
Just worn right out.
I think that we're probably breaking some sort of rule by discussing this at these lengths.
Oh, crap. I just thought of something.
Oh, yeah?
We've been getting a lot of downloads from the UK. Sorry. No offense meant.
Yeah, no,
Yeah. We called Dolly Madison a whore, so.
I did not. I did find, however, a journal entry that details their first night together, Victoria and Albert's.
Really? Was she left spent
smoking
like
a shotgun shell in the sand?
Which is one of my favorite lines from a porn novel that someone told me about.
A porn novel? My goodness. All I can say is that it included a lot of exclamation points.
Okay, exclamation points.
So most of what we talked about today comes from Ranker, but I did find an article on the Daily Beast, and I just love this line. Historians have long acknowledged that Victoria had a high libido. Some have implied she was some kind of sexual predator who had devoured a tolerant but exhausted husband.
Nice.
So anyway, that's the story of Queen Victoria's coffin and sex life, I guess. Hope you liked it.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Long live the Queen.
The Box of Oddities. It's not for everyone.
We should probably move right on to that thing in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. This week's strange and unusual epitaphs found on tombstones throughout this great land of ours. Number 5, written on the top of the pedestal in very, very small print. It says, if you can read this, you're standing on my boobs.
You have to wonder if this was something that they wanted, or did the family just decide,
Yeah.
like, hey, she'd like this. Number 4, Catherine Brown and Sterling Brown, buried together. Their tombstone states, "We finally found a place to park in Georgetown."
A lady named Lola, her epitaph says simply, oh well, whatever.
Number 2, Kay, apparently famous for her fudge, has the recipe for her fudge on her gravestone.
I was going to use that one. 2 squares chocolate, 1 tablespoon butter, melt on low heat, stir in 1 cup. Yeah, she had her entire famous fudge recipe chiseled into the back of her tombstone. God bless her. And number 1, raised 4 beautiful daughters with only 1 bathroom. And still there was love. That was beautiful. Hey, this one's not funny, but it's poignant. I'll throw this in as a bonus at the end. It's a person who died in 1988. It just says, a gay Vietnam veteran. And the epitaph says, when I was in the military, they gave me a medal for killing 2 men. Then they just discharged me for loving 1.
The Box of Oddities with Kat and Jethro Gilligan Toth.
Okay, so we got an email at curator@theboxofoddities.com. And a lady named Pam from Idaho said, you should do an episode on Stalin's Ape Man Army. Look it up. So I did, and apparently in the 1920s, Joseph Stalin commissioned a scientist to create a hybrid human chimpanzee.
Wait, Ape Man?
A real ape man.
I thought you said Ape Man Army, like as in more than 7.
No, ape man.
What?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Well, I will. And the interesting thing is, and maybe this is what made her think of suggesting it, there was an article that came out recently, at least at the time of this recording, was in February of 2018, a few months ago, our time. A very respected biologist says that he believes beyond a shadow of a doubt that there was, at one time, a successful hybrid. And I'll get into that in a moment, but here's the history of what they call the Human-zee. According to Wikipedia, there has been no scientifically verified specimens of human-chimp hybrids, but there have been substantiated reports of unsuccessful attempts. Ilya Ionovich Ivanov was the first person to attempt to create a human-chimp hybrid by artificial insemination in the 1920s. It was part of Joseph Stalin's plan to come up with a superior ape-man army. You look horrified.
I am.
Ivanov outlined his idea as early as 1910 in a presentation to the World Congress of Zoologists in Graz. In the 1920s, Ivanov carried out a series of experiments working with human sperm and female chimpanzees, but he failed to achieve a pregnancy. In 1929, he organized a set of experiments involving, we want to go the other way, non-human ape sperm with human volunteers. And apparently people were lining up for that. There were women going, yeah, I'll do that. But the government never approved it. The next year, he fell under political criticism from the Soviet government and was sentenced to exile. He worked in a veterinary zootechnical institute and died of a stroke 2 years later.
This sounds like the plot of an Avengers movie. Like, we have to stop the human ape man guy. Like, you remember Wonder Woman and the plot, the Germans with the gas and stuff?
Yeah.
Only instead of gas, it's human ape breeding.
Hybrids. Human-zees.
That is catchy, though. Human-zees, the 3rd album from Lion to the Dying.
There's a 4-episode callback joke. Wow. Now, in the 1980s, there were reports of an experiment in human-chimpanzee crossbreeding conducted by the People's Republic of China in 1967. The report came out in the 1980s, but allegedly the crossbreeding experiment took place in 1967.
Okay.
In 1981, Ji Yongzhang, head of a hospital in some city in China I can't pronounce, was reported as claiming to have been part of a 1967 experiment in which a chimpanzee female had been successfully impregnated with human sperm. According to this account, the experiment came to nothing because it was cut short by the Cultural Revolution.
So what does that mean, it was cut short?
Well, the Cultural Revolution happened then, and because of that, the experiment was cut short. According to Timothy McNulty of Chicago Tribune, the report was based on an article in a Chinese newspaper, and apparently the scientists were sent off to a labor farm, and the pregnant chimpanzee died from neglect.
Oh my God, that's awful. I hate that story.
Now, in the 1970s, there was a performing chimp named Oliver, and he was promoted as a Human-zee. He walked upright. He was a bald chimp. He was extremely advanced as far as communicative skills, as far as communicating with humans.
More than us.
I talk good times. He had freckles. His ear shape was identical to humans.
Which humans, though? Because, your ears and my ears look very different.
Sure. His cranial morphology was similar to a human. Of course, the baldness. So he looked more human than a chimpanzee normally does. And as I said, he just walked upright on his own. He wasn't trained to do that. That's just something that he did. So they did some testing on him, and they determined with this case, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he was chimpanzee. There was no human DNA.
I have a question.
He had 48 chromosomes as opposed to 47.
Okay. So you said that he just walked upright on his own. But he was a performing chimp. So how do we know that that's how would we even know that?
There's a lot of unanswered questions there.
Okay.
But it really, because of Oliver, it created a real fervor at the time about all of these experiments that took place in the 10s and 20s, the 1900s.
This is too much monkey business for me.
Now let's bring the story up to date. Renowned evolutionary psychologist Gordon Gallup. Are you familiar with the self-recognition tests that they pioneered, where they put mirrors in front of monkeys and monkeys could recognize that it wasn't another monkey? They knew it was themselves.
Yes.
He pioneered that.
Okay.
He's a very, very respected person in his field. He teaches at the University of Albany. He says that a Human-zee was born in an American lab nearly 100 years ago before it was killed by panicked doctors.
Oh.
Now, this is according to the Daily Mail. He told, all right, I have a different source for you. How about this? I fucking love science. I'm pulling from two articles here.
Okay.
This comes from the Mail article. He told newspapers that his former university professor claimed the Human-zee baby was born at a research facility where he used to work. Now, according to Gallup, his former professor that told him this is a highly respected, or was a highly respected man in his field as well, too. Very credible. Gallup, who is a University of Albany professor, told the newspaper that the professor worked at Yerkes before the research center moved to Emory University in Atlanta in 1930. One of the most interesting cases involved an attempt which was made back in the 1920s in what was the first primate research center established in the U.S. in Orange Park, Florida.
Okay. I'm just going to pause you for just a moment. Just pause the game. I want to officially state that you don't do that. Research facilities are gross. Okay, please continue.
They inseminated a female chimpanzee with human semen from an undisclosed donor.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And nobody wants to take credit for that. And claimed not only that the pregnancy occurred, but that the pregnancy went full term and resulted in a live birth. But in a matter of days or just a few weeks, they began to consider the moral and ethical considerations and the infant was euthanized.
Okay, gross. You should consider those things before you start messing around with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, one would think that...
Like, you don't just, see if we can do it and then deal with it. You think about things before you create life and then murder it.
Now, Gallup invented the term Human-zee
So upset.
to describe Oliver, that chimp from the 70s.
Poor monkeys.
Of course, there's no evidence of this having taken place. And according to IFL Science, Gallup has also come up with other questionable ideas, suggesting in another article that, quote, blowjobs are a cure for morning sickness.
That sounds like an article the man would write. Yep. That sounds... you're not feeling good, huh?
Yeah.
I got a cure for that.
I'm looking at that story. I clicked on that link, and I'm looking at that story, and that's what he claims. I'm not going to go into the details and why he believes that to be true, but
I think we know why he believes it to be true.
But the end of the article, the author of the article says, "I'm sure this will make future daddies happy, but there's no scientific evidence to prove that that's the case." Any hoozle, he has made some controversial statements.
Yep.
Blowjobs are a cure for morning sickness, and there's a chimp-human hybrid out there somewhere, or was at one point. So, I mean, you could take it for what it's worth. It's interesting, and the fact is that there have been these experiments. Whether or not they've come to fruition is... Oh, wait a second. We got another email. Where did this one come from? Seattle. Hey, Seattle, what's up? But here's what I was thinking about the ape-man army thing.
Yeah.
This was in Russia. He was exiled to a northern region.
Sure.
What if he continued his experiments and some of them got loose and went across...
Oh, I see where you're going with
went
this.
across the top of the Soviet Union and migrated into the Pacific Northwest, and they're Bigfoots.
Yep.
They're Sasquatches. That would answer all my questions.
Could it be?
Ancient alien theorists say yes.
Yeah. I should have known immediately when you said we're going to talk about monkeys that was going to launch right into the
Actually,
the
that's
Yeti.
that's a stupid idea, because we all know that Sasquatch, Bigfoot are interdimensional creatures.
We all know that.
TheBoxOfOddities.com. That's our website.
That's fun.
What, the ape-chimp hybrid thing?
Yeah. I haven't moved on from that yet.
Yeah.
I'm still absorbing it.
I don't think it's much fun for the chimp.
No. Yeah. I mean,
maybe for the male sperm donor.
once again, to state, Cat is anti-monkey research center.
Yep.
Like all the time, 100% not cool. Stop that.
By saying that, you're implying that I'm pro-monkey research center, because no, I'm not.
I didn't say that.
I've always wanted my own monkey. I wanted a monkey when I was a child. I wanted to teach him how to play baseball.
I think there's a movie about that starring Matt LeBlanc.
Dunstan Strikes Out. That's one of my favorite Matt LeBlanc vehicles.
I've had a brass monkey.
That's a drink, right?
Yeah. I don't remember. It's something to do with a 40. I don't know. Beastie Boys song.
Yeah.
Good times. Well, this derailed.
Okay.
This went straight down the shit.
TheBoxOfOddities.com is our website. The email address, curator at TheBoxOfOddities.com. We would love to hear from you.
Yes, please. Also, you can find us on the social medias.
Or as you like to call it, the Soch Meds.
I don't think I've ever called it that, but you keep saying that I call it that, so
No, you
that's
did.
fine.
You called it that in episode 4.
No, I call it this.
Is that what you
That's how
call
much
it?
I abbreviate
Wow,
it.
it's just
That's
a
how cool
smooth-
I am.
Anyhow, we'll see you next time.
Keep waving that freak flag.
Fly it high.
And so, let it be known that the Box of Oddities belongs to you, and its fate is in your hands. Therefore, it's been requested by those whom I report to beseech you for assistance. The Box of Oddities is free. We ask but one thing of you, to provide a 5-star rating and a positive review. True, that is 2 things. However, 'tis merely a 5-star rating and a positive review. Also, subscribe to us. Okay, so 3 things is all we ask. 3 things and 3 things only. Henceforth, the Box of Oddities commits to the telling of stories. Stories of the strange, the bizarre, the unexpected. we wish to offer our deeply felt gratitude and appreciation for your patronage. TheBoxOfOddities.com. Copyright 2018. All rights reserved.